Good evening, family. Grace and peace. Good to see you all again for another Bible study session. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you lending us your time, your attention. We're back on this Wednesday. We took a bit of a break last Wednesday. We had a lot going on as a church family with the loss of our dear sister Gwen Holland. Thank you all for that matter. As a matter of fact, thank you all for your contributions, your considerations, your working together, helping to bear that burden with the family as best that we could with what we were able to do. We are grateful to God for helping us all through a very, very tough week. And for that reason, that's why we took last Wednesday off. We were getting some things in place for the family and also continued prayers for them in the days and months to come. So now we're back on this Wednesday. So if you would, please, ma'am, please, sir, let's make sure as always that we like, tag, and most of all, let's make sure that we share. Someone may have been looking for us on last Wednesday who didn't get the memo about us not being on live last week, but we are back and we are ready to go. So as you're coming in, continue to greet one another. Let them know how glad you are to see them on this evening. We won't be on here long. I just have something that I want to share with you as it relates to this vein that we've been in for the past few months, extending even further into the year, talking about new territory, entering into new territory. So God gave me something just briefly today as I was dealing with some day-to-day today and also yesterday evening. So I felt that it would be beneficial and a blessing to you if I would share that with you all as well. So we're just going to give you just a few more minutes to give everybody a chance to settle in. Make sure you share. Let our brothers and sisters know that we are live right here on our Facebook page and also on our YouTube channel. And they are invited to join us for this evening. All right. So good evening to all of you that are already on. Sister Joseph, Sister Bessie. We have the Slides. We have Sister Clark. That's Claimer Clark, that is. And we also have Sister Shirley Brockington. Great to have you all. Sister Graham. Wonderful to have you. Thank you all for joining us. Again, we are preparing to discuss further just a little bit of a nugget tonight. Won't be on long, but we're going to be discussing an aspect of entering into new territory and something that I believe that the Lord wants to share with you all tonight. I believe it's going to really be a blessing to you. So you don't want to miss this, and you also want to make sure that you share this as we prepare to get started. I want to mention real quick. I want to remind you all of the singles gathering that will be held on April the 27th, which is next Saturday at our offsite location behind the Walmart store. And it's going to be a type of picnic style gathering for the singles ministry. We do encourage you all that are part of that group and would like to be a part of that group as well to make sure that you sign up no later than April the 14th, which is this Sunday. And as you signed up, please, ma'am, please, sir, make sure that you also, along with your signing up, make sure that you have your $10 fee that's going to go along with the preparations for that single gathering that's going to take place on April the 27th. I'm going to mention that again after this session tonight, but I want to go ahead and get that out there just in case some of you have to step away before we get done. Just want to make sure that we make that known to you tonight. And at some point during this evening as well, Sister Clark or First Lady or someone who has Sister Ernestine Clark's Cash App name, that we'll put that in the comment section, and that way you'll know exactly where to send your $10 that is going to go towards the singles gathering. You can Cash App Sister Ernestine Clark, and at some point during this evening, that Cash App name will come up in the comment section. But again, I'll mention this again once we come to a conclusion for tonight, just to remind you all before we close. All right, so we're just about at that magic number. We're just about ready to go. Again, I pray that you all have been having a wonderful day. Pray that we are going to end this day with something productive and fruitful and relevant to you all that's going to help us in the season that we're in. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead, and I'm going to set sort of a foundation, if you will, give you more of what I would call a backstory. I think that's a better term to use. So we're going to give you a bit of a backstory as to how we got to where we are tonight as it relates to discussing one of the aspects of entering into new territory. Now, understand that when we're going into new territory, there are certain considerations, there are certain preparations that we must consider and that we must make as we are going into new areas and into new territory. There are some similarities. As a matter of fact, when we talk about the case study, has how God dealt with the Israelites, there are some similarities as to how God helped them transition from the wilderness, from captivity into the promised land, and all of the challenges, the requirements, the expectations, the successes, the failures, all of that went along with crossing over into new territory. There are a lot of things that we can learn, that we can glean from their experiences, how God dealt with them, how God provided, how he was patient, how he instructed, and all those type of things, how he corrected them. There are a lot of takeaways that we can get from these case studies as God dealt with the children of Israel. But one thing in particular that I want to make known to you tonight. Now, remember, when we're talking about the promised land, and I'm going to try to hear me real good on this because this blessed me yesterday while I was outside. When we're talking about entering into the promised land, the promised land, new territory, new areas, you can even add this aspect to it. When we're talking about entering into salvation, being saved, we mentioned this Sunday, I think, briefly, being filled with the Spirit, being believers, Pentecostal people, and that's not a denomination per se. When we say that we're Pentecostal people, we believe in what happened on the day of Pentecost. Ordinary men and women who were endowed by a supernatural power from on high, namely the Holy Spirit. And now we live beyond ourselves. Remember, we talked about seeking those things which are above and not on those things which are beneath. The scripture says, if ye be resurrected with Christ. So that's new territory. And we have to live accordingly. We have to believe accordingly. We have to speak accordingly and think accordingly, because that's what the new territory requires. And that's what's expected of us as believers when we enter into the new territory. The Bible talks about if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things have passed away. Take notice, behold, all things have become new. That's entering into new territory. Now, if the truth be told, there are some challenges. There's a learning curve that goes along with coming out of the old and entering into the new. Even Jesus said, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. Okay. And it's not just something that is instantaneous when it comes to our flesh and the way we move sometimes and the way we think and the way we operate in this thing that we call life. Now that spirit man is instantaneously, he is immediately, instantly saved and delivered and every bit perfect and every bit whole and on its way to heaven. But we still have to deal with the flesh aspect. We still have to deal with how we sojourn, how we move, how we navigate through life. So that's the part that we're going to be really focusing on tonight, is walking out our salvation. We're talking about entering into new territory, making those adjustments. You know, sometimes these adjustments can be frustrating. Sometimes people, you know, they quote unquote, they are frustrated with their walk with the Lord. And a lot of that is attributed to them not relying on the grace of God, understanding that, like we said at the homegoing service, understanding that there is a human aspect and there's a God aspect. Okay. His strength is made perfect in our weaknesses. Okay. Now that is not to say that we don't have certain responsibilities. that there's not an accountability factor that goes along with being saved. But it does say that as we make this transition, as we cross over into new territory, as God told Joshua and the children of Israel, my spirit will be with you. Be strong and be courageous, for I am with you. So that is the aspect of crossing into new territory that we really need to focus on. Okay. But at the same time, there are certain things that we are expected to do. We are expected to handle and deal with. Case in point, Joshua, have I not commanded you, see that, to be strong and courageous? All right. Have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? Now I'm going to handle your enemies. I'm going to make the crooked places straight, if you will. The land, I've already given it to you. But here's the prerequisite to that. You must be strong and courageous. Okay. I haven't preached this yet, but I do have this at some point in time on my agenda to preach and teach on the how grace and accountability, how they work together. It can't just be all grace, okay? But there has to be grace and accountability. It can't just be all dependent upon us. That's the accountability side. But grace and accountability goes hand in hand. So where is that fine line? So how do we handle that when we're talking about being strong and courageous? You know, when we talk about going in and possessing the land. And with that being said, let me throw this up there real quick. I want you to jot this down in your notes. Just one slide for tonight. 3 verses. This is the book of Numbers. And in the book of Numbers, this is where God is establishing structure. He's establishing order, if you will. In other words, once you enter into the promised land, it cannot be a place where we are just careless, where we are just so casual or too casual about how we handle and how we move about in the promised land. Think about this. Entering into new territory, there will be new expectations. Okay, there will be new challenges. There will be higher expectations. There will be even more extreme challenges. Enemies that you've never seen before. Remember what they said, there are giants in the land and we are grasshoppers in their eyes. Those type of things. So we are to be excited about the promised land. Yes, we are, because God has given it to us. God has given us that new territory. But there is a command for us to be strong and to be courageous. As you enter into the promised land, hear me real good. There has to be order. We got to be more strategic and less emotional. God wants us to be more methodical as to how we move and how we handle certain situations. Now, when we talk about entering to the promised land, I'm talking to a group of people tonight, and I want you to hear me good when I say this. Just like the children of Israel, they experienced 400 years of bondage. They experienced the wilderness. They experienced loss. They experienced anxiety. They experienced confusion at times, uncertainty. From captivity to the wilderness, all of this has taken place. And look at the similarities here. They experienced thirst. They experienced hunger. They rebelled against God in their challenges. They didn't please God at times. Most of the time they did not. They saw some of their loved ones die off in the wilderness. In other words, these were some tough times, to say the least. And now they've gotten to this point. And I look at all of that as a type of training ground, if you will. Especially when you get to the book of Numbers, the book of Deuteronomy, those type of things. When now God is taking this group of people and he's building an infrastructure. He's developing order and structure. He's molding them, if you will, shaping them, creating a culture within them a government, if you will, a certain way of handling things as it relates to society amongst themselves. If you look at the book of Numbers, so we see here where God is molding, shaping, and structuring a people, preparing them to go into the promised land. Now, it's sort of ironic. I had a phone call with one of my colleagues in ministry right before I got on, and we were just sharing some things as it relates to ministry and our journey through ministry. And he asked a question about, what are some of those things that I've experienced that I would want to share with someone who's coming up in the same area, in the same ways, wanting to be lead pastor or whatever. And I just gave him a few things from my experiences that I would thought would be beneficial for someone who's coming up in the same aspect as being a lead pastor. And to put it in a nutshell, I would say that proper training and preparation and having realistic expectations are vital. They are important when you're talking about entering into new territory. And so if you take a look at what God is doing as a whole before they crossed over into the promised land, your expectations have to be molded and shapen. You have to have realistic expectations when you cross over into new territories, okay? A lot of time that's going to be developed in the wilderness during hardship, going without, being ostracized, losing loved ones. I mean, just the day-to-day in and outs of life. Sometimes you have to look at those moments as moments of training and preparation for something that is to come. I was telling a young lady not too long ago, I said, listen, there should be no aspect of a believer's life that is a waste. I just believe that whether it's trials, tribulations, blessings, successes, failures, whatever it is that takes place in the life of a believer, I just don't believe that anything is wasted. I don't believe in a believer wasting their time. You may be going through a hard season right now, but even in this season, there are some takeaways that will benefit you in your next season. Let me tell somebody this real quick while it's on my mind. Don't just pray for God to bring you out, and that's all you focus on. I told the church this a while back, but Lord, as you bring me out with having learned some lessons. You can come out of tribulation with a new skill set. If it's just simply knowing how to walk away. You've come out of a trying time and you know how to be silent when you should be silent. You know how to speak up when you should speak up. Don't just pray that God would bring you out, but God, bring me out with a new skill set. Bring me out with skilled hands that know how to deal with conflict, hands that know how to fight, hands that know how to war, hands that know how to embrace, hands that know how to comfort, hands that know how to refrain from embracing. Y'all know I'm sounding like Ecclesiastes. As you come out of certain situations, as you're coming out of certain seasons, don't just let your prayers consist of you asking God to bring you out, and that's all you want to do is come out. But you should be praying that, God, you know what? There's a certain way I want to come out of this thing. There's a certain way I want to come out looking. There's a certain kind of way I want to come out acting. I don't want to come out bitter. I don't want to come out resentful. But I think it was Marvin Sapp that sung the song that says, I'm stronger, I'm wiser, and I'm better. So God, yes, I want to come out of this thing. And yes, I'm ready for my new territory. But as I come out of the wilderness, as I come out of this season of my life, I want to come out having something now at my disposal, having learned something. Now I have a skill set. Now I have something in my arsenal that I didn't have before. Because there are certain things that you can only learn in the wilderness that you're not going to learn in the promised land. There are certain lessons you're going to learn in the valley that you're not going to learn in the mountain, on the mountaintops. So all of this is a part of going into new territory. As you go into new territory, what have you learned? What are the lessons that you have learned from the old territory? Okay. What can you look at now and say, you know what? I have learned not to do this. I've learned this about myself. I've learned not to expect this. You know, I talk about realistic expectations and so on and so forth. Now, I know that's kind of a lengthy foundation, but let me go right into Numbers chapter 33. verses 51 and 53 through 53. Here's what the Lord is saying to the children of Israel, to the leaders to pass on. Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you cross the Jordan River into the land of Canaan, look at what he's saying. You must drive out all the people living there. You see this accountability? Y'all see this? He didn't say that I'm going to drive these people out. Isn't that kind of sound, doesn't it sound kind of contradicting when God said, I've given you the land? And then he turns around and said, you must drive them out. Well, he already told them that I'm going to be with you. So what he's saying is, as long as you know, number one, that I'm with you and I'm enabling you and I've graced you and empowered you, then there are certain things that you can walk in and operate in, because they're not necessarily you doing them on your own, but you're doing it in me. For greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. So now, there's a certain aspect and a certain posture that we must maintain as we go into the promised land. I'm going into this new season of my life, and I'm not going in alone. I'm not going in ill prepared, but I have been prepared. I have been equipped. I have been trained in certain areas. And therefore, when I receive these instructions from God, when you go into new territory, let me tell somebody this, you're going to have to drive out some things yourself when you get into new territory. You must destroy all their carved and molten images and demolish all their pagan shrines. He said, now you got to do that. In other words, there are some things, and I know a lot of times people don't like to hear this part, but there are some things that you're not going to, that praying to God to do is not going to get it done. You know, I'm not trying to sound anti-religious or anti-prayer, but remember what even God said at one time to Moses. Moses, why are you crying to me? In other words, why are you praying to me? Stretch forth your rod and tell these people to go forward. Y'all see that? So in other words, what God is saying, like he's sort of saying here, there are certain things I've already dealt with. There are certain things we've already discussed. There are certain things that I already know that you're prepared for. There are certain things that I've taught you when you were going through the wilderness. There's a certain aspect, there's a certain skill set. There are certain things that you possess now that you've been through the wilderness that you didn't have before. So therefore, you must drive out all the people living there. He didn't say, I'm going to do it. He said, you do it. You must destroy all their carved and molten images and demolish all their pagan shrines. Let me say this while it's in my spirit. There are some things that you are praying that God would deal with that he told you to deal with. I'm gonna pause for just a second. There are some things that you have been asking God to do, that you've been believing God for, when God is simply telling you, and I believe that this is some confirmation for someone tonight, that God has already graced you, given you permission, given you the right. He's authorized you, he's empowered you, he's graced you to drive out some things on your own. Let's make it very basic. There are some things that are not going to cease by you praying. I'm not sounding like a preacher now. But there are some things that are only going to stop when you put your foot down and say no. You're not going to get it on your knees. Not this time. Not this. And you know what this is. This is only going to change by you stopping it. By you driving it out. Nope. It's not going to be by anybody praying for you. It's not going to come by way of you going to the next service or the next conference or coming in contact with the next person, the spiritual personality. But it's going to come by way of you handling this situation yourself. And that's not saying that I'm trying to do it on my own. Remember what we talked about in the text. God is saying, I'm with you. That's the key to it. I'm with you. So just say no. I'm with you. So just say enough is enough. I'm with you. You're not saying this standing alone, but I got your back. Y'all see the difference? I'm with you, Joshua. Be strong and courageous. I'm with you. So if they get upset when you say no, I'm with you. If by chance they get mad, I'm with you. How many of y'all getting this? I want to make sure y'all getting this while I move on. I'm almost done. I'm with you. So go ahead and do what you have to do. They may leave. It may change. That may change. Whatever. But God says you've got to do it. And as you do it, know this: I am with you. That's like me going outside, or you going outside with your child, and there's a kid down the street that's been bullying your child. And then you tell your child, I know back in the day, hey, let's go outside, me and you. And this time when you go down the street, you got your mom and your daddy with you, or whoever. You got that guardian with you. And now when you face that child, you got someone standing behind you. And now you can say or do whatever you got to do. Y'all see, and it may not be the best analogy, but I want to make sure that y'all get what I'm talking about. You can say no. You can put your foot down. You can draw a line in the sand. You can set boundaries for yourself. Why? Because God is with you. Now, when you're trying to do it by yourself, when you don't have God's grace helping you and undergirding you, then yes, it becomes impossible to do. It becomes difficult to do. But because God is with you, you can drive out whatever needs to be driven out. How many of you getting this? Let me see the appropriate response. And I know we love, oftentimes, we like the sensational part of being saved. We like, the praying and the hallelujah and the amens and the lifting hands and things change. And that's true. But we can't live by that alone. We can't live by that aspect of being a believer alone. There are some things that are not going to come by way of a Sunday service. Some things are going to come by way of you going in your house and you speaking, saying, acting upon certain things to encourage or promote those necessary changes that need to be made in your life and around your house. I mean, you must drive this out. The people that are occupying, God is simply saying this: the people that are occupying your territory, because it's yours, the people that are occupying your territory, you've got to drive them out. Somebody on here tonight, you need to take charge of your house. You've lost control of your house. And you need to take your house back. You need to take charge of your house. You've lost control. You need to reestablish order. Okay? Somebody, you got to take charge of your life. Nobody can, listen to me real good. Nobody should be able to make you unhappy. I just don't believe in giving people that much power and control over my life except God. There are certain things, certain aspects of my life where I am totally responsible for. And you must drive out the people living there. You must destroy whatever has been established. If God is not the focal point, look at what it says. They're carved and molten images, demolish all their pagan shrines. Whatever has been erected in that home that does not bring God glory and honor, if God is not the priority, if God is not being acknowledged as head and he's not governing that home, he's not governing your life or whatever the aspect of your life that may be, you have the responsibility of driving out and tearing down whatever has been put in a place where it should not be. And as a man of God, I speak for my own self. As the priest, prophet, and head of my house, it is my responsibility. Okay? It is my responsibility to drive out those things that do not bring glory to God and those things that do not edify and maintain and create those blessings that we have grown accustomed to in this house. Verse 53. Take possession of the land and settle in it. I like that. Why? Because I have given it to you to do what? To occupy. And I'm almost done. I'm going to make this last point. When we talk about occupy, that doesn't mean just taking up space. That means that once you've driven out You've cleaned out. You've gotten rid of everything that shouldn't be there. Now you've created an area. You created space for you to occupy. Take full advantage. Now that you're there, you take full advantage of the space that God has given you and the space that you've created in that new territory. You don't just exist. Now that we're in this territory, how can we maximize? I think it's a good word. How can we maximize where we are? In the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, I don't want to make it sound like you had an interview, but in the next year or 2 or 5 years, how can we maximize where we are as a family, as a person, as an individual? How can I take full advantage of the life that God has given me, the breath that I breathe in every day? How can I fully maximize where God has placed me as a believer, to make sure that I take the little and make much of it because of what God has given me, what God has afforded to me? How can I maximize that? That's what it means to take possession of it, because I've given it to you to occupy it. If you're married, you should be occupying that relationship. It should be growing. It should be flourishing. It should be maturing. It should be evolving. Y'all see that? In whatever aspect of your life that you can think of, don't just take up space, but occupy this life. Occupy this life. We talked about the singles ministry coming up. Y'all got a gathering coming up. And one of the main focal points of even being a single individual, as you're in that season of being single, how can you maximize? You're occupying that space of being a single person. So how can I maximize? How can I occupy? How can I take full advantage of where I am right now? Seasons may change later. Who knows? 2, 3 years, maybe married later. But right now, I'm single. And how can I maximize that? How can I take full advantage? I'm not sitting there envying and wishing I was like the married people. I'm going to maximize where I am right now. I'm going to take full advantage of being single. Y'all getting this? I'm going to take full advantage of it. If that happens later on, and I may want it to, you may not, whatever. But if things change down the road and you become married, hey, all well and good. But right now where I am, I'm going to maximize who I am and where I am in this season. I'm take full advantage of it. Now, let me show y'all something real quick. Now, this is going to be my last slide. I just got to show y'all this. Now, remember everything I said as I show you this. And I know this probably is not the best image to show you. And I know I haven't talked about those grapevines in a while, but guess what? It's that time of year again. Hey, so here we go. So, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but right here at the bottom, I was doing this yesterday evening. This is what is called a support system. It's going to make sense in a minute. So these little green poles that you see on the ground, can y'all see that? I know it may be hard to see it, but those little green poles on the ground right there, it was a part of what we call a support system. So at the early stages of growing these grapevines, they needed a support system to help train them in the direction that they should grow, and also to help them to gain a certain height until they were able to reach that first level right there and eventually get to that second level right there. So they needed a training system. And I went outside and I was like, I looked at the grapevines. I was like, man, I said, they're on the first level, they're on the second level, and they're running down the wire. And you know what I said? They don't need the training system anymore. It's time for the braces to be removed, because they are able to stand on their own. They don't need the training system anymore because they know which direction to grow. They know to run down the wire. They know to run down the top wire. They can hold on and sustain themselves. They no longer need a crutch. They no longer need, let me just bring it home. They no longer need anybody to talk about haters. They don't need anybody to talk about who doesn't like them. They no longer need milk. They no longer need pacifying. They no longer need the training wheels, but they have grown to a certain height. They have entered, here we go, into new territory to where now the training wheels, the training system, it can now be removed. And I'm going to tell somebody this real quick tonight. As I was taking these braces off, God was saying, tell the people this, that I'm removing the training wheels. I'm removing the support system because it was in the wilderness that I trained you in the direction which you should be growing. It was during those trying times where you learn how and which way to go. It was during that season of difficulty where you learn how to reach up to where you needed to reach up to. It was during that tough moment in your life. It was in that tough area of your life and your family that you dealt with loss and hurt and uncertainty to where you were trained and you made it to that first level. And then you made it to the second level. And now you begin to wrap yourself around the wire, and now you are producing fruit. Now you are productive. Why? Because of all the things that contributed to your training, all the things that contributed to your growth. And now, I'm going to tell you this one more time. God said, now you're in a season, now you're in a territory area where the braces, the training system, it can now begin to be deconstructed and taken apart. And as I piled them up, I had already threw them away. And the Holy Spirit, it just prompted me to go and gather all of them up and put them in a pile and share this with the people. You no longer need what you thought you needed. What you had to have in the past, you no longer need it. I'm telling you, after a while, you outgrow the need for approval. After a while, you outneed the need for superficial things. Those things have been removed. The braces have been taken down because now you stand on your own. You are now self-sustaining. Why? Have I not commanded you to be strong and to be courageous? Now, this side of the Jordan, and even where we're going as a ministry, the ministry forecast for the next few months is going to be directly dealing with something that resembles this. The training system that taught you which way to grow, how high to grow, the pruning, the cutting back, all that's been taking place. And now God is removing some things because you are now at a level, you are now in a season of your life where you don't need who you think you need. You don't need what you think you need because now you are standing. Now you are confident. Now you have learned lessons, valuable lessons. Now you have realistic expectations. And one of those is, let me just be very basic with that. When I talk about realistic expectations, everybody ain't gonna like you. You learned that already. Everybody's not gonna have a good opinion about you. Those are what I call realistic expectations. I tell myself that from time to time. Listen, here's a realistic expectation about me, about what I do. Everybody is not going to see you as their cup of tea. I mean, I'm a public speaker. Preachers, teachers, we are public speakers at its least common denominator. And guess what? Because we are public speakers, we are open for public criticism. And that's a realistic expectations. So at some point in time, we should be able to get over that, take those braces off, and let's start giving the people what they need. Take those braces off and start doing what you need. Stop worrying about those things that are irrelevant. Stop worrying about those things that are not going to bring God glory. that's not going to attribute to your growth in this season. It's time for the training systems that have been put in place. God is removing them. And you know what he's saying? You drive them out. Y'all see how it come full circle? That right there. I found myself, let me take this down now so I can see the comments. I found myself, out of all the work that I put into those grapevines for the past 4 years now, watch this now, hear me real good in my closing. I find myself having to do less and less work to the grapevines. I'm going to stop right there and see how many of you got that? How many of you got that, what I just said? Let me see the appropriate response of what I just said. I find myself in this 4th year of dealing with these grapevines. I don't have to do as much work as I did in the initial stages of the growth of the vines. I don't. Because now, hear me good, somebody. Y'all go preach this somewhere, because I feel a little preachy when I say this. Now you should be at a stage in your life where God can step back, and God doesn't have to micromanage you all the time and ask you where you at, why you still there, why you won't get up, you still crying, you still mad. When you gonna get back up? When you gonna start? When you gonna forgive? When you gonna let that go? See, we all have those moments. Weeping may endure for a night. Hey, there's a time to weep. There's a time to cry, but there's a time to laugh, and there's a time to celebrate. I find myself having to do less and less work. I find myself having to pay less and less attention to the vines, because they are now, Lord have mercy, they are now at a stage. And you know the only thing I look for now? The only thing I look for now on them grapevines is, are they producing fruit? Because it's time. Can y'all see the similarities in this? God is saying, I put time into you. I've invested into you. Through the wilderness, I was with you. Through your hard times, I've been with you. I've been patient with you. I've been caring towards you. I've been long suffering with you. And now it's time for me to remove the training system. And you should be at a point in a season of your life where God said, I can step back. And just like I went outside the other day, I started looking at my imaginary clock. And I was like, And that's all I did. I didn't do a whole lot. I was like, grape season is close, and y'all should be producing after a while. Why? Because of the work and the investment that I put into them. Y'all see that? Y'all hear God? Because of the work and the investment that I put into it, I see that you should be at a point now where you drive them out, where you take it down, where you should be producing. I just see God in my mind's eye, in my spiritual eye, where he's stepping back with his hands up like this and saying, I've done all that I'm going to do to you now. I'm getting ready to take these training brackets off. Did you learn anything through your tears? All that work and all that time we spent together, all those long nights we've had together, all those times when I was talking to you when nobody else was around, all those sleepless nights, all that we went through together, God is saying, you should be stronger now. You should be better now. You should be what? And now I'm going to step back and I'm going to watch you produce. Just like my wife came outside last night and she said, Craig, what you doing out here? I said, I'm not doing a whole lot. I said, I'm just taking these training brackets off. I'm just taking these training brackets off. And that's all I'm doing. And I took the training brackets off. And all I do now is I'll walk outside every now and then. I'll look and I'll be like, and I'm just seeing Here's a good comment right here. Here's a good way to put it. And every now and then I go outside and I will see if they are responding to what I put into them. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it right there. Every now and then, that's all I do now. That's all I do now. I go outside and I just check on them to see how they are responding to the work and investments that I put into them. Because one thing we're not going to do, we're not going back to me doing what I did when they were little sprouts. When they was little bitty sprouts, they needed daily attention. Y'all see that? They needed daily attention when they were little sprouts. But let me tell you something. You've grown. And you got to see that. You got to acknowledge that. You have grown. You are no longer the same person that you were back when that happened. You are grown. You have changed. It's time for you to realize that you are entering into new territory. And all you got to do now is produce fruit. Remember what scripture said in Numbers? You drive them out. You tear those idols down. We are coming out of, we're in April, right? So I'm going to use this analogy. We are in fruit bearing season in the natural. Grapes, all the time. We are in fruit bearing season. And y'all already know where I'm going. We are in fruit bearing season agriculturally for a lot of type of vines and plants. Guess what? I believe that for a lot of people, believers, we are in fruit bearing season. I believe that. How many of you believe that with me? I'm gonna get ready to get out of here. How many of you believe that? Just like I'm going outside now, and because it's fruit bearing season for my vines, I believe, and I don't believe I'm by myself. I just don't believe I'm by myself. I just believe, I believe because of what God has invested into us. I believe that we are in fruit bearing season. I believe that. I do. Because there are seasons. And I just believe that we are in fruit bearing seasons. I don't care what it looks like to you. Don't look at what it sounds like per se in the natural. Don't listen to the naysayers and all that. But you've got to know that this is my fruit bearing season. The training structure, the training poles and rods have been removed, and I'm going to produce. Somebody say that real quick. I'll put that in the comment section. I'm going to get ready to get out of here. I am in my fruit bearing season. Yeah. This is my fruit bearing season. I done had my crying season. I've had my mad season. You done had it too. I done had mine. You done had yours too. I've had my mad season. I've had my crying season. I had my season of being upset. You've had, and I've had my season of being just depressed. Because everybody gonna have those seasons. Just as sure as you living, you're gonna have those seasons. But I just believe tonight that I am in my fruit bearing season. It's not this. I ain't stunned. Can I get country? I ain't stunned nothing about trying to get even with nobody. I ain't stunned nothing about what folks say. I ain't stunned nothing about what folks heard and this, that, third. I ain't stunned. That's just where I am right now. And I believe I'm not by myself. I am in my fruit bearing season. And if people or situations are not going to contribute or promote the season that I'm in, then they are the wrong people. If you are not going to promote or encourage the season that I'm in, you need to keep it moving. You need to keep it moving, because if you have the wrong people in your life at the wrong times of your life, you could possibly or potentially hinder or delay your fruit productivity. You can do that, I'm telling you. Because people have their seasons too. People have seasons. All right. So I've spent more time than I wanted to be on here tonight, but I believe that we've gotten something very, very beneficial tonight. I just want to share that with you all. I'm outside now. Y'all know when I'm outside, that's most of the time when God speaks to me. So I like that, Brother Green. There are grapes in the, I like that. I like that. That's good. So there are, people should be telling you there are grapes in the land. Yeah, people should be encouraging the season that you're in. That's good. So I just believe I want to share that with you all, because I believe it blessed me, and I pray that it bless you as well, that we are entering new territory. This is our fruit bearing season. All right. So I want to make mention of this one last time before you go. Let's be mindful of the singles ministry gathering. It's going to take place on April the 27th at our off-site location behind the Walmart store. It's going to be sort of a picnic style gathering. We're asking everyone that can and will, who would like to participate as singles in that gathering, to make sure you sign up in the foyer area at the church, in the social in the foyer area. I don't know why I say social hall. And also make sure that as you sign up, that you contribute your $10 that's going to go towards, it's going to be at the social hall. Oh, so it's not going to be at the pavilion. Okay. So it's, First Lady said it's going to be at the social hall. So I was correct on that. So it's going to be in the social hall. And I'm waiting on comments. Okay, she said right. Okay, right. Okay, so it is going to be in the social hall. So I think I said at the beginning the offsite location, but it's going to be in the social hall. Make sure y'all pass that on. I make that correction. So April the 27th in the social hall on that day. And as you sign up in the foyer area, make sure that you contribute your $10 towards that gathering. And Sister Clark, Ernestine Clark, and I think I saw some other people who put up Sister Clark's Cash App. You can donate or contribute that $10 towards that gathering by sending it to Sister Ernestine Clark's Cash App name. All right. So govern yourselves accordingly. Hey, we would love for you to please, ma'am, please, sir, sign up by no later than April the 14th. Get a good head count. See who all's coming. Get everything in place. You don't want to wait till the last minute. So if you know that you're going to be there, please, ma'am, please, sir, at your earliest convenience, no later than April the 14th, sign up in the social hall. Contribute your $10 towards that gathering by sending it to $ETCLAR74, and it's at the bottom of the screen right there, or it's in the comment section. All right. So we appreciate you all for your consideration. I pray that you were blessed tonight. I was glad to be here with you all tonight. Pray that this was time well spent. And as always, if you're not, if you don't have other obligations, we would love to have you come and fellowship with us on this coming Sunday at 11 a.m. Sunday school begins at 9:30 a.m. So we appreciate you all for coming and being a part of our services. If you cannot come in person, we're always streaming live right here on our Facebook page and also on our YouTube channel. So we appreciate you all so very much. If you can't make either one, just make sure you're praying for this ministry. And I will read some comments. When I saw my friend's name up there, I had to stop. So make sure that you're praying for this ministry as we pray for you as well. And also be praying for our future endeavors. I said this to the church, I believe it was this past Sunday. Because we have been building a church, now we have come to the point where we've got to build a church. So y'all make sure that y'all are continually praying for us. Hey, let me just say this to you all. I'll say this again, but I'm saying it tonight. Thank you all for your hard work, dedication, sacrifices, and commitment towards your Easter pledges. That has tremendously put us ahead of the game. So right now we're at a stage where we're just getting some other things lined up, and hopefully, prayerfully, we'll have some very, very exciting news for you very, very soon. And it's all because of you all obeying God. That's what it's about. You obeying God. And because we have been building a church, God has allowed us now to have the responsibility of building a church. We have ministry needs, and we need space and all the other thing that goes with it. We have good problems, and we have a good God to help us with them all. All right. So y'all, grace and peace, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. And hey, we will see you all on this coming Sunday at 11 a.m. Grace and peace. Y'all have a wonderful evening.